Okay, it says I'm live. Hopefully I'm live. Hey guys. Hey, what's up, Pete Turtle, Menza, Gerald? Glad you guys could join us. How are you guys all faring today? I white turtles. But yeah, we've got Phil with us again, and Phil is right now getting something to drink, but he's there, and he's got his peas ready, just like you stated there, Menza. But I think our last mix-up was because of updates for Zoom. We didn't update the Zoom application. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about anything esoteric. What's up, Phil? We're live now. So
Yeah, sorry.
it's all good. But yeah, this is Phil Langdon. He's a fine teacher of esoteric knowledge, and he's been illuminated. He's seen the light. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself there, Phil?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Phil Langdon. I'm from London. I became illuminated 5 years ago, just over in December 2014. I talk about it with Steve, and we talk about all sorts of stuff to do with it. It's basically ascension. It's the same thing. You can call it illumination, ascension, liberation, salvation, any word you care to mention that liberates you from your physical, the sense of your physical confines, as it were. There's more than that, obviously. I mean, it actually liberates you from reincarnation cycles. So there's a deeper aspect of it that most people, don't really consider.
Right. And we get into, the real knowledge behind what the Bible stories mean and what have you. And you wanted to talk about the states of mind as far as they relate to the best states of mind as far as to find, yourself or to find solace, I guess.
Yeah, because a lot of people, when you hear about them talking about it, because they haven't done it, they tend to overly spiritualize it and use terms and phrases that are overly spiritual or overly religious. So they can't talk about it in a personal way, and I do that on purpose. So you can hear the reality of it, from the experience of it. So basically, what you have to recognize is that God is the deepest part of yourself, what we call God, but there's always this impression that God is somewhere else, out there, over there somewhere, nothing to do with you, which is not the case at all. It's simply the deepest part of you, and that deepest part of you turns out to be the ineffable itself. Obviously, the entire concept of the entire esoteric material is to express that and bring it into the written word that we can grasp and understand and try and aspire to ourselves effectively. That's why somebody would talk about it or write it down. That's why I've written my book, so you can see what it takes. And this idea that you go into a state called samadhi, that's what the Hindus call it, is really just a total relaxation state that you can absolutely relate to falling asleep, in the sense that during your day you're in what's called beta or beta mode. It's a very high frequency brainwave pattern. When you watch TV or read a book, you go into alpha mode, which is more relaxed. If you go to bed and you start falling asleep, you go into theta mode, which is even more relaxed. And when you fall unconscious, that's referred to as the delta sleeping state, which you're not awake. You're not aware of yourself as such. You dream and you're in blackness and there's no time, as it were. You're not aware of the passing of time when you're unconscious. In that unconscious state, if you can touch that delta state while remaining awake, that basically is what they refer to as samadhi. It's nothing more than the natural, relaxed, very relaxed state that you'll have by relaxing, which means not worrying about stuff all the time, especially what goes on in the outside world, which is also another subject you wanted to cover, because so many people are coming at you with their worries and their woes and the sense of depression of what's going on in the world, when it's completely unnecessary. See?
And why do you say that? First of all, now these states of mind that you're speaking of, these are the same things that the hypnotherapists would use, right?
Yeah.
You to
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Because in the more relaxed physical state, your brain, the parts of your brain that are mechanically engaged to your physical activity are no longer necessary. So the other parts of your brain come to the fore and become focused on. You know, it's like as I was saying earlier, when somebody's blind, their hearing can become more acute. So when you switch off a part of your brain, you don't need anymore because you're relaxed. You don't need to physically function. You can focus on the deeper parts of your brain. Yeah, that's what hypnotherapists dive in and grab and pull out from, as it were.
And that's probably essential to astral travel too, right? Same, pretty much the same thing.
I don't associate astral travel with samadhi experiences because I did astral. No, not at all. I did astral travel when I was 15 by starving myself, basically fasting. And it said that it weakens the link, it weakens the hold that your body has on your spirit, and you're freer. It's easier to get out of your body. And of course, the intention to do it while you're doing that is like a ritual that you produce the result of your intention. And I did have one, but it was a bit messy. Long story. But I don't associate that. I don't associate that with samadhi. I wasn't in samadhi. I simply went to sleep as normal, hoping to wake up outside of my body, and I did. I was at the ceiling level, looking down. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, samadhi is a very, very pleasant, relaxed state. It's like on a Sunday afternoon. Maybe you got 2 weeks off from work. You've gone on holiday. It's Sunday and the sun's shining. It's a lovely day. Everything's quiet. You're perfectly relaxed and happy as you are. This is the kind of state that we're talking about. When you're nice and happy and content, you haven't got crazy thoughts disturbing you, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so it's not about not caring about the world. It's about finding your true self, which is more important because you have to take the log out of your eye before you can help take any twigs out of anybody else's eye. There's also that, you know, you can't go out into the world first and start trying to fix it because there'll always be more crap coming in that you can't. You're just going to spend your life trying to fix other people's problems, and you wasted your time. You know, you haven't sorted yourself out. It's really about sorting yourself out. That's all it comes down to, and that's about deep relaxation and reconnecting with your eternal self, which is truly eternal. It's the ineffable aspect of your being, which associates with your awareness. Awareness. Wait a minute.
So you're saying basically. My eternal self is your eternal self, right?
Yeah, it's the same because there's only one spirit. Spirit is one. That's the characteristic of it. So you saying you rejoin God, it sounds like you're losing your identity and becoming something weird that you don't know about. It's not that at all.
And that's where the saying "I know thyself" comes from in the Bible, right? Or to know yourself.
To know yourself, yeah. That means to know your true self, which means to know God. But we call our true self God because it's the same God of the cosmos. It's the same being. It's the same spirit.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly the same spirit because spirit is one, so it's always the same spirit. You see, the simplicity of this logic, it talks by itself almost. Do you know? Well, if you understand it, it talks by itself. Really, right. It does. I don't even have to think about this stuff. It's just there. You know?
Yeah. What anyway, do you mean? Think about this stuff. What stuff? You mean all of the?
I don't have to work anything out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Concerning the esoteric, I don't have to sit down and say, "Hang on a sec, Steve. I'm just going to work something out." You know, writing a book or something. No, it's just boom. It's just there. You just know it. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me interject for a second. If anybody has any questions, just put it in all caps so I know you're asking a question because I haven't the time to. I don't want to be rude to Phil and not ever look up at the screen and while we're talking.
That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's fine. See, that's fine. Okay. I understand. You need to do that stuff, man. Don't worry.
All right. Cool.
I'm not phased.
But yeah, you were speaking of the states of mind, and then what do we do when we think that the whole world is just coming down on us? I mean, what would be your advice, and what's your state of mind when you come to that? Like, they and them are all against us, and there's this and that coming at us, and everything that, I understand that sure, you're gonna be sad every once in a while, but how do we keep from going down them holes that just envelop us?
That's your perception of it. That basically it's about perception. I'm not saying that you're perceiving incorrectly. I'm not suggesting that people are incorrect about COVID-19 or whatever, whether it's fake or not or what have you. I really don't know. I'm not an expert on viruses and what have you, but I can tell you that if you spend more time focusing on your own inner issues, you will advance higher quicker than if you waste time on issues in the outside world that keep repeating themselves. Today it's COVID-19. Before in England it was Brexit. Before that it's something else. The war here, the war there. Oh my God, calamity. Well, there's always going to be that in the world, out of your control. You can't control it. Let go of the need to do that. And also, most important, I found recently again, is to make sure that your perception of reality, you make sure you don't focus in on a storm in a teacup and expand that out to become your whole world, because that's not your world. Your world goes all the way back to God, who has nothing to worry about. But if you're not aware of that, you're only focused on this physical aspect of your existence at the moment, you're going to be the product of what you're focusing on, and what you're focusing on is unhappy. Therefore, you'll think of yourself as unhappy because you're empathizing with what's going on outside of you. What's going on inside of you? That shouldn't be dictated by the outside world. You should be in control of what's going on inside of you, and you need to master your emotions. Control your emotions doesn't mean suppress them. It means recognize them and recognize their place. Everything has its place. COVID-19 has its place. It's just another virus that's come up. They happen all the time. We've had them going back hundreds, thousands of years. Nothing new, it's no surprise in my mind. If you're getting on with your ascension and you're focused on that, why would you need to worry about what goes on in the outside world? Sure, if you've lost your job, I'm going to have to cover every single circumstance when you talk about these things now. If you make a statement like this, all of a sudden there's a person who's going to pipe up and say, well, what about me? I'm in this unusual circumstance. What have you got to say for me? How long does that take? But some people have lost their jobs. I haven't lost my job. But some people are less fortunate than me in those circumstances. But I've been in positions where I've lost my job from no fault of my own. I've been through all sorts and I'm okay. You realize in the end, it doesn't matter what you go through, as long as you're still standing and you're okay. Don't let things faze you so much. Remember your sense of humor. If you lose your sense of humor, you've lost your balance. That's a very simple test to find if you're okay, if you've lost your sense of humor.
Now, does it matter if your humor is sick, demented humor or lightened? I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, no, I've got a crazy sense of humor myself. I like Monty Python.
Yeah.
Extreme humor. I like Tom and Jerry as well, the cartoons.
Right.
They're incredibly violent, I know, but they're incredibly funny as well. It's not the violence I appreciate. It's the overt, like smashing a mosquito with a sledgehammer. It's funny because it's too much. It's just silly. You know what I mean?
Right. So
yeah.
So pretty much don't let the world bring you. Don't let the world bring you down, because
No, it's not your fault. You don't blame yourself for what goes on in the world. It's not your fault. Yeah.
Right. And people are going to say, so is it the invalid's fault that he's invalid? Is it the mentally handicapped psychotic?
What, karma?
Yeah.
Are you talking about karma?
Well, they're going to come at you with all those ideas. Well, what about this? What about that? So, what do you say to that? It's not their fault. They're slow, or they're handicapped, or so why are those people in this world? And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. For a start, if you want to understand things like that, you have to expand your awareness. You have to, you can't think of it in normal human terms, I'm afraid, because if you get this wrong, you'll end up like someone called Glenn Hoddle, I think it was. He was an England football manager who said that disabled people are born like that because it's their karma.
Yeah, which is very, very wrong.
That's that's not what's going. It's not, that's not karma. I don't think that you can put it down to karma. Karma is literal consequences, and that can depend. Karma can depend on other people as well. If you say something that someone takes in a bad way because they are narcissistic, and they create a bad situation for you, it can be said that you've created karma for yourself. Yeah, the consequences of what you said has been taken in this way, and now you create. No, the person didn't create that. The other person who received the words, who was the source of what was bad and rotten, which is narcissism, they are the source of that karma, and they are going to reap in the end the karma of what they have produced, and you will not, because it will not reflect on you in the end, because you didn't create that situation, and you stand in what they, you know, what you can call truth. If you can sustain people being nasty around you, it shows you have great stability and a sense of self-worth. It's very important, this sense of self-worth, because people who freak out about COVID-19 are not recognizing their own self-worth, that they don't have to rely on the outside world for their inner happiness. And that is not an airy-fairy concept at all. Not at all. It's a realistic one. Yeah, I don't need to worry about what goes on in the outside world. It's not my fault. I've gone completely off subject. I've forgotten what we were starting to talk about, to be honest.
Oh, we were talking about the states of mind and how that drives us in our process of ascension, and and how we can get sidetracked in that state of mind. Like when we let the rabbit holes consume us, or the conspiracies consume us, or the not to down this, but
Yeah.
not to go all David Icke on everybody.
Yeah. Whenever someone has something like that to say, that they're worried about the state in the world, I would react by challenging that, because that is a way of challenging the world, because we're told that by the media, yes, there's a bad situation happening, but it's under control. We're getting on top of it, and yet people are coming out with all these horrible, well, this future, there's vaccinations coming, there's this, they're going to turn us into living robots or zombies or whatever. And no one's going to allow themselves to become like that in the first place. You can tell your authorities to piss off if you want to, en masse, and they have to listen to you, I'm afraid, because they can't just enforce ridiculous things on people, truly ridiculous things. There has to be some scientific backing. But overall, see, the issue is, should you be worried about it? And I'm not worried about it. No matter what happens to me physically, I now know that is a tiny portion of my total being. But if you say that to a regular person, they think you're living in cloud cuckoo land and not recognizing the reality of physical life, that when you're dead, And, some people think, well, maybe there's an airy fairy spirit world or not. I don't know. This guy seems to think he knows. I do know. I'll tell you something else, actually. I do know. I'll tell you something else. Because when we were talking with Jack last time on here, he mentioned the Tibetan Book of the Dead, right?
Yep.
So and he suggested I read it, because I read it about over 20 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago. I didn't get it at all. It just, it's like, what are they talking about? I had no clue. So I didn't bother with it. So I read it, 2 weeks ago, and lo and behold, surprise, surprise, there's exactly in the Book of the Dead, exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about the underworld, and the nature of it being your inner world mind, literally inverted to infinite proportions.
Mm-hmm.
And so now all your thoughts are literally going to appear outside of you. You're going to see the contents of your being as a result of your life. So it talks about different stages of this process when people, and they call the underworld the Bardo. Bardo, I don't know why. So yeah, in the Bardo, let's use that term. You'll see, they say, demons and spirits that will taunt you at some point, only for a short while. These are aspects of your own psyche. From your own psyche, they're being generated, because physical life literally generates what we call spirit as well. This is something that I don't think many people recognize, that spirit creates the physical, which creates the spirit, which creates the physical, which creates the spirit. So we literally, when we ascend, we literally leave everything physical, completely everything physical. That is a fascinating concept, that we become spiritual from the physical life, see? So the earth, in a way, is like a birthing station for angels, basically. If you wanted to encapsulate why are you going to earth for a life? I'm going to become an angel. That's the purpose of coming to earth, to become an angel.
Right.
I don't know how many people would be able to tell you that, but that, to me, that is just instantly obvious. That's why we come here. See?
That's what makes Earth special. I mean, are other planets the same as Earth in that aspect, or?
I would say you can do this from any planet, from any humanoid being, from any humanoid body. Because if you look at all the creatures on the planet, if you advance them through evolution, they will become more humanoid and far more intelligent, and their brains will expand. But you've now got a humanoid that has come from birds, let's say, or reptiles. We've come from reptiles.
Mm-hmm. Right. You mean anything that's in a finite structure that's got death looming over them? You know, I think that's a prerequisite, right? Is you got to be you have to be incarnate in something that's going to die, and you have to face that in the school to realize your spiritual essence, right?
Well, I don't think there's any need to you might want to come to terms with your own physical death in the future, but I don't think there's any need to do that. See, because ascending is literally dying. You experience death without the body dying.
Right.
Your body simply almost shuts down in a total relaxed state that's just catatonic. It's catatonic. You can't actually move anything when you have ascension. When you come back and your eyesight returns, you can't move. I couldn't move 4 hours.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Didn't you say you didn't move for 5 days or something like that from the
No,
spot?
for 4 hours, I couldn't engage any muscle in my body. I couldn't move. So
I've
you
had
just
that happen when I got carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh,
Yeah.
ow, that's bad. You're
Passed out
right.
for 2 hours, or I could open my eyes and stuff, and think, and I was like trapped in my head. It was weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm not making light of what you experienced. I'm just saying I've experienced it, but in a different way.
Yeah, sure. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
That actually reminds me, because when you fly up in the underworld, it's as if you know that feeling you just told me about. I was in my head, but I didn't feel couldn't feel your body the same.
I couldn't do anything, couldn't move anything. All I could do
Yeah,
was think and see.
yeah, yeah. That's the kind of thing that I would associate with this as well. That sort of sensation, a detachment from the body.
Yeah.
You know.
And one other time I had that is when I, had the out of body experience when my appendix burst, and yeah,
Ooh,
that was the only other time. But I thought I was literally
gosh.
woken up. Then I not until recently realized that I was above my body,
Yeah.
from perspective, because I didn't realize actually until I met you that I was out of my body. Yeah, it was weird that I mean,
Yeah.
30 years went by,
Yeah. Wow.
Well, yeah.
Blimey.
But
Well,
somebody says, so I can't have kids. So is that karma,
I
or
see. Karma, yeah, back to the karma thing. The karma thing is literal consequence. So I would only associate karma within your lifetime. See, being reborn or reincarnated somewhere, it has other issues going on with it than simply what happened in that particular life, because there is a destiny for you as well. There is a sort of roadmap that's laid out that you sort of meander. Here's the roadmap, this straight line, and this is what you do. You sort of do that because you got free will, and you choose your own thing, and there's encouragement to follow it. So there's all this sort of thing going on. So I would associate karma less with passing from one life to the next. If you've been a real piece of shit in your life, you're going to have a real hard time in the bardo because you've done no inner work, and you haven't transformed those demons from your psyche originally. You haven't transformed them into angels, basically. See, because what happens is the process is you're going from childish to adult. Overall, that's all that's going on. And the childish, it always has fears and worries, but the adult who sees all, let's say, who has the light, what is there to fear? You've seen the core essence of truth and the foundations of creation. I'm afraid that's literal. I'm not making that up. I'm not inventing that. I'm not trying to big myself up or anything. I'm saying you can have all see this as well. There's nothing special about me. Don't forget. Yeah.
And this is our true purpose on this planet, is to do what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The one
Yeah.
only true purpose that we have is that.
Yeah, it's to find yourself. Find yourself. Who is the self? Your true self. That's what we call God. Yeah, and that's the deepest part of you. So to go deep, you have to be quiet. You have to be relaxed. And there it is. When you shut everything down, there it is. You can't.
And how do you get in that state? I mean, you've told me in the past that you're not much of a meditator, but I mean, obviously you've practiced this. So how do you do it?
Well, I don't meditate in the traditional sense. I don't sit in the lotus position. I've never done that. I will sit in a chair and I will contemplate. I've done mostly contemplation. So I sit still. I can't have any disturbances. The lights need to be off. I don't want to be disturbed. I want to be focused entirely on what I'm thinking, because I'm chewing things over. I'm meditating on thoughts, but they're functional. They're going to produce a result that's called understanding. I'm not just chewing bubble gum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So to get into this state, I want to tell you that it's basically nothing more than relaxation, and comparing it to falling asleep, but staying awake while you touch that delta state that's normally associated with unconsciousness. If you can stay awake, you are in the state known as samadhi, and in that state you will become aware of what we call heaven, because you are joined to what's called heaven. That's the deepest part of you as well. And God and heaven are automatically, they go together, like strawberries and cream.
I got a question from Menza. He asks, so our inner work, is that working on our faults?
It's being self-aware, recognizing your own behavior, where it comes from, going back to heal your inner child. So your behavior should be happy and joy. That's the natural state of any person, happy joy. If you're not that, something has disturbed you. Yeah.
So like I'll be watching a movie in a certain circumstance with usually it's to do with a father and a son, and I'll start bawling, crying. Is that something telling me I have to,
That's empathy, surely.
Right. Okay.
Empathy. Yeah.
That not necessarily means I don't have to work on myself unless it's what really bothers me. What are you saying?
Right. So okay, working on yourself, there's two issues there. Are you having a boring life where there's no experiences to work on? Then you're not being traumatized, so there's nothing to work on, so you're okay. And in that sense, you can look toward advancing your understanding of the reality that you find yourself in, let's say. So any disturbances will disturb that process, because that process of advancing towards your true self is natural. It's natural. The world we live in has become focused on the finance issue of living. It's not focused on this issue, the personal development towards your true self. So you have to go to religious groups for that, or church, or what have you, and look at the mess they make of the truth. They mess the truth up. I'm sorry, they do.
Right.
No one. I'm afraid it's an unfortunate truth, but nobody who hasn't ascended can teach anyone about ascension. Surely they can talk about it, no problem, but you know, that if you haven't done it, then what are you teaching people? I
Right.
must say, I'm surprised at the things I hear online about
Well,
what
if you
other
ever hear
people.
me saying something that's off topic, because I like to talk about it, I haven't accomplished it yet, but I'm sure I will. And it's just, I try to keep. I don't know. You know what I mean? I've got another question from Jack. He asks, the Bardo. What association did you make between the Bardos and the Abyss? And here he texted me actually, and that was him. Can you ask Phil if he thought any of the Bardos exclusively corresponded to the Abyss and the Light? Also ask if he can define counter space. And I wanted to ask you that too. Counter space. What is counter space to you?
Right. Oh my God,
That's the
we're
Ken
right.
Wheeler side of me
We're
asking.
in, I know we're in the land of physics.
Right.
But this takes you, because if you want a proper explanation of that, you have to go into physics. I would strongly recommend, before we say anything, I strongly recommend just look up Roger Penrose, Google Roger Penrose,
Yep.
Google images, and have a look at how he maps the idea of what's going on inside the event horizon of a black hole, because that's the most interesting in these terms, because you're talking about space and time in certain terms. So if you think of the abyss, that is timeless, and yet it's an infinite space. And
Mhm.
don't forget, infinity and zero are basically effectively the same thing. They're opposites, and yet opposites join together. That you jump from one to the other in a cycle. Yeah.
Mhm.
And when you go to one end, when you go to one extreme, you find yourself at the other, as it were. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh
So
yeah, of
if
course.
you go into a singularity, you will find yourself in an infinite expanse.
Yes. Can I come in
So
from the out now?
they are the same. It depends on your point of view, as it were. You are an observer always, a focused awareness that is observing. Yeah, there's all these issues going on as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
see what
why I
I'm? You
say
see what
that's
I'm?
why I think our event horizon is actually our microwave background is our event horizon. That's why I stated that, is because that's pretty much how what you're saying there in a macro sense, I guess. That
In a
it in is
cosmic
the out,
sense.
the out is the in.
In a cosmic sense.
Yeah, in a cosmic sense. There you go. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, normally, traditionally, the cosmic sense of awareness takes into account the galaxy only. It doesn't even bother with other galaxies.
Right.
If you've noticed, a lot of the ancient stuff will take into account the galaxy. The zodiac is associated with our galaxy.
Hmm.
It's the stars in our galaxy. So everything is about our galaxy. It's not about the cosmos. It's not very often spoken of, the cosmos in the ancient world, unless you're looking at Timaeus or Plato, from Plato, where they talk about the demiurge and how he fashions the cosmos. Apart from that material, yeah, where it's mostly about the galaxy and the Sky Father. The Babylonian thing, the Sky Father is a recognition of galactic nucleus, being a link to the outer part of the cosmos, where there is no time, but there is infinite space. And yet, to go back to what Jack is asking, if you think about it, because I know from the experience of being in there how when you think I want to do this, instead of flying towards that point, you simply appear in a closer position, as if you haven't traversed any space at all. So even though the space appears to be infinite, it's as if there is no space.
That's
Do you
weird
get?
because, yeah, recently Bob Lazar was speaking of that's how these craft move.
Yeah, they warp basically the fabric of space time. They turn it. When you go through the event horizon of a black hole, you've gone through a t=0 boundary, timeless boundary. That timelessness is the nature of the abyss. You see, so everything within that boundary is now black. The abyss is black. Timelessness is black.
Awesome.
And it's almost as if it's as if there's no space anymore beyond the event horizon, between the event horizon and the singularity. It's as if space doesn't exist anymore. See, and there is no time. It's a very, very difficult thing to talk about. It's very difficult. Notice it, they don't talk about it in grand technical terms so that everyone can understand. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, for instance, they simply talk directly about the Bardo, and there are three kinds of, they distinct kinds of Bardos I saw when I was reading it. But if you recognize also that the Bardo, or the abyss, is effectively what can also be called the mental plane. Because what there is in reality is awareness and energy. See, that's basically all there is. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, I
It's
know exactly
actually,
what.
reality is actually quite simple. If you recognize what it is, the awareness aspect of reality is the eternal, timeless, limitless, godlike aspect. See, without the physical, it's God, as it were. But there's also this principle that the physical is required to develop awareness to the point where it becomes God, so that it can recreate that which makes God. See, so there is a grand scheme to this as well. So what I'm saying about the Bardo being distinct in distinct, three distinctions in the Bardo, as it were, if that's the mental plane, you can imagine there are different, you know how things settle out into layers. If you put different materials into a glass with water, different things will have different layers when they settle out. It's a very natural process. So if you think of the mentalities of people who are entering the Bardo, what kind of people are doing that? Somebody of a certain low mentality, let's say, will experience certain things in the Bardo, and they're on a certain level because they can't go any higher, because they can't develop their thinking anymore. Because in the Bardo, you can't develop your thinking. It's in a physical setting and environment that you see changes and development, because change is the principle of energy. It's not the principle of the Bardo. There is no change in the Bardo. So all you've got is what you've accumulated in your awareness, in a sense. You see what I'm saying? So if your awareness has been very low level, you're going to be stuck at that level in the Bardo, as it were. If you're of a much higher thinking, if you think in a higher way, you're going to see and perceive and appreciate the higher aspects of the Bardo, as it were. In the Book of the Dead, it was talking about talking to people who have literally just died, and they can hear you. Even though their body has died and the function has ceased to be, they can hear you, let's say, clairaudiently. I don't know what else what other word to use for that. So the suggestion in this Tibetan Book of the Dead is that the dead can hear you for a while. Therefore, you should tell them very poignant, useful things for them. And what he was telling them is go and basically hibernate for a while in the light, in the cloud, because it's the only thing that's in the Bardo in the first place. There's nothing else there apart from you.
Right.
You know, however, of course, this brings about the near-death experience
I was just going to bring
concepts.
that up.
Yeah. So how does this blackness with nothing there relate to all these near-death experiences? How come you meet your loved ones and all this sort of thing? Well, there you go with the leveling again of what you're like when you die. Krishna talks about this as well. Your experience from then on is determined by what you are like at the point of your death, your personal development. Do you love people? Do you not? Do you hate? Do you not? Yeah, everything about your persona is like frozen in time now. This is what you are now. You make your bed, so you lie in it. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So you're literally creating your own future with your life.
Yeah, in the Emerald Tablets, it speaks of that very thing where you can hold your mind at the point of death, and that is how you remember things in your next life. You know, it's sort of, you know what I mean. But yeah, that makes what you just said right there is so. The Bardo is the place in which we rest until we come back to reincarnate. Is what you're saying? I mean,
Yeah, your I would say your reincarnation is mostly automatic, because if you look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead version of the Hall of Judgment, you've got somebody, in the simple terms, you've got somebody whose heart is weighed to see if they're a god or not, and if they're not, the crocodile-headed creature, it's a composite creature, is going to eat you, and spit you back out into creation, and you have no say over that. See, everything about creation is always automatic, and it is the best thing for you. It may seem like the worst. There's an issue with people who can't handle a bad experience. They think that the bad experience reflects on them, and that they have to reflect that bad experience by feeling bad. That's not correct. You don't always have to be in a lovely setting to feel lovely. Do you see what I mean? That it's very interesting, though, when you look at the psychology of your surroundings and how they do affect you automatically. But when I hear about this subject of psychological and automatic responses and reactions, I react to that by thinking, well, what about the higher spiritual level of thinking that does go beyond that? That is more powerful. You know, you don't have to succumb to these automatic responses. We're back to that subject again.
And what do you say to people that call Earth purgatory? Somebody just chimed in the chat saying that.
Well, there's an interpretation of suffering, if you like, because but really, all sages will tell you that any physical manifestation that you're involved in is going to be mostly about suffering, because, but that's basically because you're born completely ignorant.
That's why the tarot starts out as a fool card, right?
Yeah, ignorance is the source of all suffering. Ignorance is the only problem there is. And the only way to solve the problem of one's ignorance is to deal with it oneself. There's no help like self-help. Nobody can do that for you but you. There's a sort of horrible truth, you know, but it is true. So I'm trying to help with that. That is my intention, to help anybody with that process. Was there anything else we needed to say about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo? I was talking about how
the Bardo, what did he ask? The Bardo, did it exclusively corresponded to the abyss and the light? Also ask Phil if he can define, well, the counter space thing, but the abyss and the light. I think you did explain that, because that's all that there is, right?
The counter space thing, yeah. So in the cosmos, we have time and space, but outside the cosmos, effectively, and inside the event horizon of a black hole, we have timelessness and spacelessness. So there are two opposites. Now, that's what you've got going on, is dual opposites all the time. Anything to do with manifestation is dual opposites always. There's no such thing as a singular issue. Even the light, being a singular object, is a dual opposite to the abyss that surrounds it. They have a relationship. They come together. They're born together. Yeah.
Time is a way to define timelessness, pretty much.
So, counter space would be what you call zero space, and then you're also dealing with how are you appreciating this concept? Are you appreciating it as a concept simply, like a definition of a spatial type of space, or are you thinking of being in that space, observing it, perceiving it? Because there's a distinction between those two, and we can talk in different terms depending on which you prefer. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you want to talk about the space itself, we can talk in mathematical models. But if you want to talk about how to appreciate it, we can talk about your awareness in it, like being in the abyss. If you think of going closer to the cloud, you will instantly be closer to the cloud without even moving. So you've traversed apparently space, but there is no space. It's kind of like an illusion as well, the Bardo, you know?
Well, I'm sure I do know, but not right now. If you get what I'm saying. But another person asks, duality. Is there duality, or is, I say that duality is just a means for creation, right? I mean,
the fundamental duality of the abyss and the light is actually the world of creation. In Kabbalah. That is the world of creation. That's the source of creation, because those two issues together generate what we call creation, the cosmos. It takes two to tango, you know.
Right.
It takes.
Awesome. Yeah, you can dance by yourself, but you're only shadow boxing.
No.
Yeah. So
Here's an interesting thing that I just wanted to add, that the physical and the spiritual are literally the same thing in opposite states. They are one and the same thing. Therefore, the physical will produce the spiritual, and the spiritual will produce the physical. You see how the relationship works? Is a circle. They each produce. It's very yin yang, and you can't have one without the other. You can't become perfected spirit without going through the process of that is called physical, because you can develop your awareness by going through what's physical of the automatic that has come from your true self, which is all there is. So what better teacher is there than the automatic physical creation around you? And that's the function of it, is to teach you.
and how does this 7 hermetic principles fit into all that? Because I know the answer to this, but I mean, mentalism is the beginning and the end. I mean, or there is no beginning, but right. So could you explain a little bit, touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, mentalism and correspondence are almost like the book of Revelations and the book of Genesis. You can go from Revelations directly to Genesis, and they cross over and weave together as well, because you're hearing about the experience that you're hearing in Revelations that you're also hearing about in Genesis, in creative terms this time, but in Revelations it's ascension terms. It's all about ascension, the book of Revelations. Nothing but that's what it is entirely focused on, your ascension, how it works, the function of the chakras, the fact that they open one by one. You use these 3 in your normal life, the lower 3, and then
That was the other thing we wanted to talk about, was the chakras. So let's not forget.
Yeah. So but people don't normally think of themselves as a microcosm of the cosmos. You are literally a miniature cosmos. The cosmos is born, it lives, and it dies. It's born, it lives, and it dies over and over again. This happens to you as well. You are replicating the nature of reality in your life as well, across your lives as well. So being a minute version of the cosmos, anything that happens in you is profoundly important. Not only because you're a miniature cosmos. Why are you that? Well, if you look at everything else in creation, you've got animals, you've got the vegetable kingdom. You go back down the kingdoms, you can see that all those kingdoms are literally embedded in you, and you are the summation of everything that physically exists. You are the best product of this universe. See, so you must have an important function, and that function is through your mentalism to correspond with the creator of this automatic system. See? And that creator is generated by God. So you have to meet God, who helps you to generate the creator and free you in the process. You're pollinated, basically, like you're a plant. You're pollinated by the Spirit of God. So it seemingly comes from outside of you. It does seem like that, even though it's the deepest part of you. But you see, heaven opens up to you. So all of a sudden you're in heaven, and it's an infinite garden. And throughout this infinite garden is God's Spirit. See?
And that's the timeless, dimensionless space you were speaking of.
Yeah, but it's in you. It's you projecting outward from that central position that you found in stillness and absolute rest.
The center of all things.
Yeah, and it turns out to be the nature of the center of all things as well. So you become one with the center of all things, and here now is the center in you, and you are a living, walking God, as it were. It's as if God is on in the world, but of course, the reality of ascension, post-ascension, is that you now have to develop more into God yourself. So it's not great pressure. It's about deeper appreciation. So it's like a master class. Now you've done the school, the college, the university. Now you're in master class, and you better get it right, because you're going to look pretty stupid if you don't, aren't you?
Right. Oh yeah.
Aren't you? Really? Right. If you can't back up your claims about yourself, then it's just not going to work, is it? It's not going to carry.
Right.
Anyway.
I find myself talking about this stuff, and then at the end of the day, it's like, I can't really I don't know, drive it home or spike the ball because I haven't accomplished it yet. But
very, very difficult. I mean, you can become an intellectual sort of esoteric hero like Manly P. Hall. You know, people almost deify him because he's so good, eloquent at his expression. The way he describes things is so beautifully written. You know, he knows what he's talking about. It doesn't mean he's actuated it, you know, in
right,
himself. I don't know whether people know how simple it is, how simple it is just to relax and you know, almost go to sleep. But if you focus on something like a bright white light while you're doing that, and you're already in a nice relaxed state, to be honest, you can't go from a fully awake beta state, drop straight into a touching delta state. It takes your body time, it takes your brain time to calm down. So you need to give yourself that time. See, it just takes a bit of time. Get into the relaxation mode, and stop your thoughts. You know, stop all that wild. Oh my God, the world is burning. You know, the world is being destroyed. And you need to do something about it. No, you don't. The only thing you need to do is find God in yourself. That's the only duty of a human being, supposedly, is to
right.
find God. That's it. That's it. That's your duty. You don't have to go to work if you can sustain yourself. You know, great. But there's a system. Okay, so you know, Kabbalah says whatever system is in place, just get on with it like an exercise. Don't worry about it, but focus on your finding God. Yeah, while you're doing all that to sustain yourself physically, you have to. You know.
Yeah, and recently you had posted a picture in Facebook in the group Ascension group. By the way, everybody, he's renamed the Ascension group or the Illumination group on Facebook to Ascension because explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. We had. I get one Freemason a day trying to join the Illumination group. Some of them are very rude. Some of them are neglectful. They don't even bother to answer the question. And sometimes it's the same person pretending to be other people. You know, so there's this constant influx of Illuminati and Freemason types. And I let one on one day just to show everyone what it's like. And he caused havoc on the page, of course, which I cleaned up, but I got rid of him. It's just to show an example of what these people are really like. Yeah, so I had to rename it Ascension because that's more in tune with the modern zeitgeist, idiom, phraseology, as it were, you know, as opposed to Illumination suggests Illuminati straight away. And there's a dark cloak, you know, like the hooded claw associated with all that.
Yeah, it's like me, I'm a Mason, and if I say that, everybody thinks I'm saying I'm a Freemason, and not to say that all Freemasons are bad. You know, there's always
No, they're not. No.
secret society stuff connected to it, and
Yeah. But it's not as sinister as people think behind the scenes. It's not quite as sinister as that. They are just people as well.
right.
It's more important for you to focus on what you're doing in your life. You know, in whatever confines you have, it's best to develop yourself and forget about other people's woes halfway across the world. For instance, you know, they don't concern you. Why would they?
Right. But what I was asking was you posted that picture, that photo of somebody meditating and sitting in a lotus position, and you
Yeah.
know, and how does that interrelate to the chakras and the whole Buddha setup? And you know, is it coincidence that they sit and they look like a pyramid, and there's pyramids all over the world? I mean, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know about the human form in terms of when it's sitting
yeah.
down. It does look kind of triangular, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a pyramid. If you sit cross-legged with your hands on your knees, you are actually the tetrahedral frame. You've now created a tetrahedron. See what I mean? Because you've got a triangle at the base, and a triangle with both arms, and there's a triangle at the front. That's 4 triangles. So geometry repeats itself, yeah, and the fundamental geometry has got to be the tetrahedron because that literally represents every aspect of reality at once, being the ineffable singular, the 2 issues, 0 and infinity, concerning manifestation, and the link between the 2. you know, the halfway house, as it were, which is the light, the creative principle, or Christ. So they have 4 points. Of course, that will be, if that's the blueprint of creation, we should find it everywhere throughout. Interesting that some mathematicians or physics groups are now focused on the tetrahedron as a fundamental building block of energy or material, that it has something to do with the way energy comes together. Yeah, including the Higgs field. You know, there's the stuff now, the new stuff about Higgs field. That's a huge subject as well.
Yeah,
Can't get into it.
just real quick, I don't want to get into it, but what about dark matter? Does it exist?
Well, I think you'll find, if you listen to decent people, there's a lot of in physics. There's a lot of it's almost like tabloid journalism. They come up with these terms.
Exactly.
And the term can register in your mind as if it's telling you something that it's not. It's just a way to refer to an issue they found that they haven't got a term for. They haven't defined it yet. It's because that was in particular because they found that the universe was actually accelerating in its expansion. So, and the dark matter issue came in because they needed some mechanism to explain why the universe is accelerating in its expansion and simply not expanding. What is the rate of expansion? Is it slowing down? Is it getting faster? You know, there are 3 models for that. They're famous. You know,
Right.
I don't know whether you're familiar with those. One of them is a saddle shape, which is the correct form. The saddle shape becomes a torus, a donut, which is.
Oh yeah, that's the apple core. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole subject in itself.
They just came out with a paper actually stating that the whole universe looks like a toroidal field, or is in the shape of a toroidal field. Yeah, I think Suspicious Observer just did a video on it actually.
It would have to be spherical overall. It has to be spherical.
Right. But I mean,
that's automatic. You wouldn't get if the overall cosmos was literally a torus, you could say there is a center, but there is no center. Everywhere is a center at the same time. So there are technical issues that force you into the specific corner that is true, as it were. Do you know what I mean? And some of them are very difficult to mentally grasp. You wouldn't normally think of them, so to speak, like the nature of what's inside an event horizon. How do you explain an infinite space that is not space? You know, how come I can move 1 trillion miles like that in the underworld if I so wished? I could do if I wanted to, no problem. So that infinite space is not space. How bizarre is that? It's like opposites at the same time. It's just it's just confusing. So that's why I was talking about how do you appreciate the space? Are you talking of it as a space over there that you can mathematically model, or are you talking about it in terms of your appreciation of it? You know, because if we mathematically model the Bardo, it's an infinite void. But if we talk about being in the Bardo, we now recognize that even though it seems an infinite void, it's actually no space at all, because I can go 1 trillion miles away in a flash, in no time. It takes no time to move in the underworld. No time.
Right.
Bizarre. That is bizarre. It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be if you think of it as a spatial thing as far as we consider space. But yeah, can I come in from the out now is how I like to think of it. You know, it's simple, but you know, it works for me. And that's the whole apple core thing is, you know, that's why I say we see everything as an accretion disk or the Kuiper belt or an asteroid belt, is because we're on the inside looking out, you know, from here, from this perspective.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you mean.
But that's how
the thing with the cosmos, when people are trying to model the whole cosmos, they try and oversimplify. And if you look at the Meru model of a torus, you might think, well, the whole cosmos looks like that, but it doesn't. That model applies to a galaxy and everything from there, because the cosmos has more to it than just that. You see what I mean? The galaxy doesn't have to have the issues of the cosmos. there is a distinction. A galaxy is really a focus around a point that's gone back to its original state of the Bardo. That's how I see it. See, to me, a black hole is the underworld. That's it. That's what it is. That's how I see it. That's an entrance to the underworld. It's a black hole.
And the underworld, what do you mean by that? And the underworld is
it is the infinite abyss.
Yeah. Okay.
But the cosmos is in that infinite abyss already. So now you're getting a part of the infinite abyss back again. Do you see what I mean? The event horizon to me is a boundary between the cosmos and the Bardo. So I see a black hole inside the event horizon as the Bardo. To me, that's the underworld right there. In the underworld, the only significant issue is the light.
And the black hole is said to be so powerful that even light can't escape. That's what you hear every time you hear about a black hole.
Yeah.
So that's oddly enough kind of fitting.
That's physical. That's physical electromagnetic waves we're talking about there. I mean, I wouldn't know how to define the light of the cloud. How come that cloud is lit up? I don't know. I don't know how to define that, or I can't get my head around that. Where does the light come from? How come I can see its laser beam arms all the way along? Is light coming from every point along the arm into what? Where's my eyes? I have no physical eyes when you see this cloud. How does that work? Do you see what I mean? This is a very, very bizarre issue. Really, right. You can't talk about it in normal physical terms because you haven't got a physical body. And you're not in the physical cosmos. So how come you can see every part of the cloud? Right. I don't get it. What eye are you using? What are you looking with? Your physical eyes switched off before you went into that state. So how come you can see that?
Yeah, it's like when you're dreaming. How do you see things, right? I mean,
yeah, in your mind's eye, you obviously you see things. Yeah, I mean, when I saw it, I tested because I thought it wasn't real. I thought I was inventing it. Really, I expected to see a light source in the distance. If I looked around, I just expected to see a light source in the distance. Probably because it turns out if you travel at the speed of light in the cosmos, all the light around you from all the stars, as you approach the speed of light, will become focused to a point source in front of you that's very, very intense. It's like moving into rain. The rain's coming down, but because you're moving into it, as it hits you, it's as if it's coming from in front of you. So the same thing, if you travel, like in Star Wars, when they hit light speed, it looks like they're going through a tunnel, like a wormhole, which is fair enough. There's another aspect of physics we could talk about there, but really technically, if you go at the speed of light, all light sources will come from in front of you. So everything else will be pitch black.
Yeah.
So that's what I expected to see, because I recognize the speed of the ascension as being light speed. I thought that is light speed. I've gone at light speed, and here I am in this situation. I reckon I'm going to see a light source in the distance. So when I turn around, there's a freaking cloud in the way. You know, and so I thought that's not real. Am I inventing that? Am I in my own head? What's going on? You know, all this sort of thing.
Right. And I have a question from Piccolo. Have you seen the Book of Ra, the creation story?
I've heard of that. I've heard of that. I think I was looking at that about 3 years ago. That rings a bell. I can't remember the contents. It may have been rather good.
Yeah, I haven't read it either, but I've heard it's pretty good.
Yeah, I seem to associate a sense that it was worth a read. That, right. As far as I remember, anyway. You know, do you know the guru yogi called Sadhguru?
Oh yeah.
You know he hasn't read any scriptures.
Oh yeah.
You aware of that? So
yeah. He says it all comes from inspiration within him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's doing that on purpose. It's very, very powerful, important point to recognize that you only need one source of truthful information. You don't have to then go to another one if you've got it already. You know, so if you're a Hindu, you only need the Vedas or the text or the Gita or whatever. If you're a
Because the
Christian,
truth is only going to be the truth, and the truth is the truth no matter what, right?
yeah, it's the same truth. You're going to read the same truth in the Bible, but because they've twisted it, you're going to think, no, it's different. No, it's actually the same truth. So you only need if you're a Christian, you do only need the Bible as a source of information that you can call true. But if it's misinterpreted for you and forced on you, and you don't understand what you're reading, but you think you do, because of all these levels of interpretation with the esoteric we can have, you know, if you've got a shallow interpretation, you might feel satisfied with that. If you have a shallow appreciation of your reality, you know,
Right.
yourself. But all these books contain truth. They're all worth reading if you understand them, and you only need one source. Therefore, I didn't really feel the need to go through all the Gnostic texts and do loads of videos about every single Gnostic text in the Nag Hammadi library, because I've covered it in general in one video anyway. You see what I mean?
Right.
So do I really need to go through every single ancient text on the planet? Is it to convince people that I know what I'm talking about? Well, I'm not really interested in that. I like exploring the subject myself, because I'm still doing that. But I'm here to prove in a way that this is real and that you can have it. See, that's my issue. This is real. It's available to you. You need to know that it's available to you. You need to know that, you know, and do not think it's not available to you, because it is.
Right.
Yeah, that's to me, that's very important for someone to recognize that this is actually real. It's not. I'm not riding a unicorn over a freaking rainbow. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to I'm not trying to put anyone down, but I'm just saying this is so real. It's horribly real. It's kind of like that, you know.
Right. Right. Which brings me. Oh, look at that. Jack's asking another question. Can you ask Phil if the Tibetan Book of the Dead is tailored for Eastern mind as all the deities are Hindu or Buddhist?
It would be in that tradition. It would be in the Indus Valley tradition. I'm guessing the Tibetans came from the Indus Valley. I'm not sure though. I don't know how ancient they are, because the Nazis thought that their Aryan roots were found in Tibet, you know, and there's all the stories about Aryans, and it's probably the influx from what I think was a civilization on Mars. Personally speaking, I think that's what happened in the past. What's he asking again? Sorry, remind me again. What's
He
he
was
asking?
asking if it was geared towards their tradition.
Oh,
You know, I think
right.
it's
I mean,
because it's in their tradition, right? I mean, it's
well, I don't know. I mean, what you get written down by different people,
yeah,
whether they're ascended or not, is down to them. It doesn't mean there's any standard that anybody follows. The truth itself, or the knowledge, is the standard that we all follow, but we express it in our own ways. I mean, compare my book with the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I'm talking about the same thing, but in different ways, like from a Westerner who was born in the 20th century.
that's how different religions are born, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. A new person finds the truth and they write all about it, they express it, and people see it and they think, oh, I recognize some wisdom in here. I'm going to follow this and find it myself. Always the same.
right.
Mm.
And earlier you were speaking of the pollen and the Akkadian pictographs or hieroglyphs, or with the Akkadian standing there with the pine cone out in front of his holding the pine cone out in front of his face and holding the seed bag or the bag. Could you explain that picture a little bit?
Yeah, it is funny sometimes how people commemorated the moment of seeing that cloud, because that is the deepest part of your existence that you've now found. It's like you're God who has jumped into an ocean and he's dived all the way to the bottom and he's found the treasure at the bottom. So that's what illumination is, really. It's you diving into the deepest part of yourself and finding the creative principle of your very existence. You know, because that created you physically, that object, that weird looking light. Where were we? Sorry, I've just
Pine
gone
cone
off
in
on.
the seed bag. or the
Oh, I
bag, you
see.
know,
Yeah, I beg your
how
pardon. Yeah.
everybody
So
says
I,
that
so I,
man bag or whatever. Yeah, man purpose.
yeah, so I was saying that the commemoration of that moment of finding the treasure, that moment is the commemoration that is everywhere, as well as the relationship between the treasure itself and the creation that it generates, the cosmos. In that particular version, the holding the pine cone out, notice it's at eye level. It's literally at eye level, and it's as if the moment of seeing this cloud is commemorated in that, and the fact that he's using his arm as well. I think, is it the left arm or the right arm? It might be the left arm. That has esoteric significance as well.
Yeah, he's standing to left profile, so I think it's his right arm. I'm not.
Isn't he holding the basket with his
Oh yeah, he's
right
holding.
arm in
Yep,
view?
yep,
And I
yep.
think he's holding the pine cone with his left. I
Right,
think he's
right.
just like that.
You're completely right.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah. So you got that. That's a symbol. That's a symbolic statement about a state of being. So you could use just a modern sentence to say that when you become illuminated, when you see the light of illumination that has come from the pine cone, your pine cone, that this relationship, here you are, the viewer, aware of an object at some distance from you. See, that's the moment of where you see the cloud commemorated right there. And you've become a sower of seeds. You've become a farmer. That is pollen in his bag. And the idea, it's a metaphorical idea that you're sowing seeds of wisdom and truth to allow for the growth of other angels. So you become an angel, and now what comes out of your mouth is going to help other people who haven't become angels yet do so, if they listen. So there's the principle of Jesus. You know, the speaker of parables he's holding a bag of pollen, and he's sowing the pollen to the plants that are receiving pollen to produce that new seed, to produce the light again, because that's the principle of the cosmos. The creator as a seed, like an acorn that grows an oak tree that regrows and reproduces acorns again. The light will it doesn't reproduce itself directly. It reproduces the means, this physical body and the ego and the psyche. That's the means by which it can be recreated, but it's God who recreates it. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome, man. You just put you put something else together for me that I'd never considered. But yeah, that's
Right.
pretty significant. Menza asks, how does Phil balance the physical world life now that he is enlightened? Isn't it mundane for you?
Right. To be honest, a lot of the great work would seem mundane. It was slogging through life. For me, it was slogging through life, and a lot of adversity in different ways and different levels. So, see now because I'm aware of a lot of greater things. My mind is on those greater things and bringing them somehow into some sort of fruition here. But that takes time, because it took me 4 years to put together all the information that was available at the moment of just after the moment of ascension. Your brain feels like, your head feels like a vast empty cavern, and it's full of ethereal information. So you can't grasp it yet. It's all there, you know it's there, it's on board, but it's now going to take some time for the depth of that to filter into your conscious mind. So you can have this insight that day, another piece will come through, and slowly you build back this picture, and you realize, oh my God, I see. So all the stuff that I thought of before that corresponds to this, now I've got a very good idea of what reality really is and how to proceed. The one thing I wanted to say about manifesting as well, the idea of manifesting your life suggests that you can become the king of a nation. If you just wishful think yourself to, I want this, I want that, and the law of attraction says I'll have it if I think about it a lot. That's not really how it works. Obviously, if the tree of life, as we mentioned earlier, is a blueprint of everything in creation, the principle of its sequential order and nature is also telling us about how we bring manifestations about. So you have the world of emanation, the world of creation, formation, and action. You can apply these to heaven, the underworld, the cosmos, and black holes. Literally, if you're just taking the totality of reality to start with, that's how you apply it. But if you apply it to an individual person in what they want to bring about, emanation is the idea that you have a thought. You know, I desire this. You know, there's the wishful thinking. You need to bring it about physically. So then you realize how you need to take action towards that. So you're looking at the goal of taking action. Immediately after you have the thought, you're looking at the goal. See, and then you go through the world of creation and formation. Creation is when you actually start doing things that bring about your dream. So you might make a business to make loads of money, to buy a huge mansion, if having a mansion is your dream, or whatever. You might want to go and sell your body, whatever. You know, some people just don't care. I've met people in Thailand that did that. They didn't give a damn. Anyway, you know, make money any way you want. If you're all right with that, fine. So here we have the sequence of the worlds of emanation, creation, etc. in Kabbalah, applicable to the idea of bringing about a life that you want for yourself.
Right. What you just explained there, I say that you have to think about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before you can eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you gotta make it. You gotta think about it.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
It's just that simple procedure, yeah. But there is something to be said about you're focusing on something as well, and having an effect. Because when you're dealing with people, you're dealing with somebody else with a brain, a psyche, and we give off vibrations literally. We tune into the resonance of the Schumann layer, the Schumann resonance, which is between 5 and 8 hertz. That's our atmosphere. Our atmosphere is a cavity, electrical cavity, that holds these frequencies all the time, and they're generated by electrical storms or lightning storms. There's always an electrical storm somewhere on the planet. So these frequencies are constantly going, and we are in tune with that. Therefore, we can literally put thoughts into the environment of our atmosphere that other people can pick up.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fascinating thing about awareness and thoughts, that you generate almost an entity that has a certain amount of awareness or intelligence. This is like people who do rituals in black magic to create demons or conjure demons and what have you. It's the same principle. You know, it depends how you apply it. We are the source of energy ourselves. So we can generate things. We can create a consecrated space that becomes a really nice place to be, you know, and that's us generating that. We're putting the energy into that. We're making it, and it can link to the divine presence if it's of a high enough quality. Do you see what I'm saying? This is what
where people say change your vibration, or
this is what I encountered at the Pantheon in Rome. That's a very, very profoundly divine, consecrated space, and you could really feel it. So tangible, you know. So this subtle nature is something that I've gotten into more after illumination, that I didn't appreciate fully, that I heard about though, in terms of Stonehenge being a place of healing and what have you.
Right. The what was I was going to say something about a man is as he thinketh, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much in line with that same thing.
Sorry, Steve, 2 seconds. My phone's ringing. It's my sister.
You know,
they're trying to get hold of me because it's my dad's birthday tomorrow, and there's a feud going on in my family that has nothing to do with me. It's quite amusing, but anyway.
But you know, I have something to do right now too. So I mean, we can continue this again maybe next week or the week after. How's that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going back to work yet. I haven't heard from them yet. We're supposed to be sort of going back to normal-ish, aren't we? In general, there's an ease of this lockdown. So I'm assuming I'm going back to work in the next 2 weeks or by June. I don't know. But even if I do, we can talk anyway.
Yeah, anytime you're available, man. I'm always happy to hear from you and happy to talk with you.
Yeah, same.
I like the facial hair. I think mine's a little longer though.
All right.
I'm not cutting mine until I'm not shaving mine. My wife's not happy, but I'm not shaving mine until this whole thing's over with, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe
Right.
I'll give it to charity when it's down to here and I'm braiding it. But hey, thanks, man. I
Yes, looking
appreciate
good.
you, brother, and thank you
Yeah.
for
Thanks,
talking.
dude. My pleasure as well. Thanks, Steve. Dude, whenever you want to talk, just ask. Don't be afraid to ask. It's not a problem. I'll try and make time if I have to.
Okay, bro. I
So
appreciate
sometimes I just get involved with one person, and they take up a lot of time. So
Mhm.
it's not a big deal. But just whenever you want to chat, just ask, man. I'll try and
Okay.
make room for it.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate it every time, man. So
Same. I really enjoy talking to you, man. So,
thank you, bud.
great. All right.
And
Bye.
thanks
Goodbye,
everybody
everybody.
for joining
Thank
us.
you for being here.
Yep. And I've got a book or a link to Phil's book, the Ascension Handbook, and it's free. It's a PDF. If you're wondering about any of what he's speaking of, you can download that. And so I've got the book here in paperback though. So, oh, you can't see it because of my background. Yeah, my virtual background's getting in the way. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. But here's the book. Can you see it now? Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty stout in its information, and it's it's even better than this book to me. And this book to me, the Emerald Tablets was a big book up until I came across your book. Your book was just as informative, way more informative about the issues of ascension than any book I've ever picked up with, and tells you everything in a plain and simple fashion. So I appreciate that as well, Phil. Thank you for the time it took for you to put that book together.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm glad it could be done. I wanted that book to exist. Do you know what I mean? If it existed, I wouldn't have had to write it.
Right. I mean, I was blown away when I started flipping the pages. I still go. I read it, reread it, and I keep going back through it, and it's awesome. So anybody who's interested in that, there's a link in the video down below in the description box. But yeah, thank you again, Phil. I appreciate it.
Man. Yeah. Happy days,
Happy
everybody.
birthday to your dad for me.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Chin up, everyone. Chin up.
Night.
Yeah, everything will be fine. You'll
Yeah,
see.
everything will be cool. All right.
Okay. Take care, man.